Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsolicited, where we bring you the unsolicited opinions, advice, and information about all things government contracting, some of which you may not have even known you needed to know. And so today we're coming to you from San Antonio, AFCEA Alamo ACE, and don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, all of those things so that you don't miss any of our conversations with incredible SMEs. Speaking of that, today our guest is someone who lives in the middle of government contracting every single day. From cradle to grave, across contracts, grants, teaming, and strategy, this is Stacy Vaughn.
Hi, everybody.
Yep, and so Stacy is the managing partner and owner of D-Unity Group, where she serves as a liaison and facilitator for business in GovCon, helping them compete for, to win, and to sustain contracts and grants.
Yes.
I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
She specializes in supporting disadvantaged and diverse businesses, including 8As, WOSBs, and many, many others, with businesses in consulting, coaching, and step-by-step processes and procedures. And we have the privilege of getting some of that from you here today.
Yeah.
Stacy, welcome to Unsolicited.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're super glad to have you on, and I'm
Yes.
excited about our topic.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about why one size doesn't always fit all, right? One size
Yes.
fits all fails in GovCon.
Yeah, it does fail in GovCon. And the reason I've kind of used that as my quote is I'm only 4'11". And and you know how you see the one size fits all shirt? It does not fit somebody as little as me.
I love it.
I mean, it doesn't fit somebody who's 6'7". When I had a former boss who was 6'7", it's not going to fit him. And that's kind of GovCon. One size does not fit all.
I love that because
Yeah.
I think that too. I heard that once on a movie where they were like, one size fits most. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a better saying even
Yes.
than one size fits all.
Yeah. So
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. You've worked with a wide range of government customers and contractors.
Yes.
When you look across the GovCon landscape,
Yes.
what are some of the biggest mistakes that businesses make when they treat all government customers like they operate the same way?
Well, part of it's language, as you know. All the military DOD forces speak a different, the Army speaks a different language than the Air Force. Or the Coast Guard, they have their own requirements that if you don't spend some time researching, you can assume, oh, they just buy boats. They do more than that if you really spend some time thinking about it. And then there's other agencies that I am very fond of because I've gotten to know that team, like Department of Energy. Everybody thinks they're into turbines and all this other. There's a lot more on the back end that people don't realize. So that's why I say you got to know your customer really well. If you're going to a drugstore and you say, I have a cold, they're going to ask you, what kind of cold do you have? Do you want off the shelf? Do you need an antibiotic? So it's in that same vein. I always think it's really important for businesses to really understand.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the business owner, it's hiring the right people to know who to go to make sure you're having those conversations in that vein.
All a part of capture.
It's all about capture.
Yeah, and you can't do capture right if you're not trying to speak the same language as the customer you're going to go get that information from.
Right. And also, I came from a very unique aspect. I took over a guy for Garrison Command. He was basically the mayor of our base. His contracting officer passed away suddenly.
Oh, gosh.
And so when they realized they had to hire somebody, as a government person, it was going to take 9 to 10 months to get somebody, and they don't have time.
That's right. And
so I ended up filling that position as a contractor, but everything I got tasking was in a green suit. So I got a nice little, I got paycheck by a Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin back end. But everything I did that day came from my boss, who was the mayor, the general of the post, and he bought everything from people, technologies. We bought Burger King franchise,
Sure.
All those kind of things. And so I really kind of cut my teeth in that because I was fairly new at that point and realized that I needed to really understand how because it is a little city. If
Yeah.
you think about it, your average base has about 20,000 people. That does not include family members, commissary, all that. So you could easily say most bases between 30 to 40,000 people on average.
So would you say one of the risks then is if someone has done a contract with
Yes.
a customer, you tend to start speaking the language of that customer, and the risk is you're going to go talk to another customer in that language, and they might immediately be put off by the fact that you didn't even do your homework before you came to see me.
Right. So I've seen the best deal ever is a contracting officer raises pit bulls. He was at a dog show. One of the other guys was, that's his hobby. They started talking, and that was the commonality. So sometimes it's just knowing the commonality of the conversation.
That's
you
right.
know? And I know some people call it small talk, but I think it's beyond small talk. It's hey, I happen to be in San Antonio. My husband's retired Air Force. Do I know the Air Force language? I do. Do I know it really well? I don't. But I do know that the Air Force tends to buy more technology than the Army does, and their mission is different in this perspective. So knowing those baseline stuff is more important, so that when you go to an Air Force person and say, hey, you guys buy planes and that's all you do.
It's going to make you seem pretty ignorant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think I like that you mentioned the contracting officer having that off-duty time. We tend sometimes to see the customer that we're speaking to as this like robot.
Yes.
Where in reality, they're human like the rest of us.
Yes.
And as long as you can start to instill trust with them in those conversations, it affords them an opportunity to actually talk to you about the requirement, because they know that you're there to care, not just about them, but about the requirement owner.
Right. But also, I also feel like I had one guy who used to always call me, I have technology to sell to you. I have technology to sell you. I said, I don't believe you. I said, until I see your face, you're just another sales guy on the phone. So one day he showed up at our office and he goes, I want to show you what I have. I said, first of all, thanks for making the appointment and doing the due justice to understand where we are at, because I wasn't just buying any technology at that point. But the other thing was to say, hey, I heard her say, I'm not going to keep talking to you on the phone.
Finally,
Finally,
right?
Yeah.
Good for you for answering the call and telling him one more time, hey, look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, especially this day and age with all the changes, they are human beings. They're all going through their own thing. And I think that's the other part we have to understand is they don't just sign the check and they don't bring out the requirements. They're people with, really, you have to think about, I always say it's all about the warfighter at the end of the day. Your mission, my mission is to support the warfighter. How do we do it together?
That's right.
And
I mean, truth be told, a lot of those acquisition professionals are being stretched really thin.
Very thin, very thin.
And so they want to know that when they sit with you and they talk to you, this isn't going to be a exercise in futility, that we're going to be able to have conversations and that I can trust you through that conversation.
Right. And also, I always joke, but it's also true, is a lot of contracting officers or technical advisors. A lot of times, if they're too good, they're likely to go to another office, and you need to kind of follow them, because if you cultivate a relationship, hey, I'm not at the Air Force anymore, I'm not Department of Interior, that's a relationship you have built now. So they're like, oh yeah, didn't you do that for the Air Force? We may have that requirement over Department of Energy or Department of Interior.
Well, and it goes back to my conversation about trust.
Yes.
Right? Like, they're going to understand then that you're in it for the mission.
Right.
Because they've spent time getting to know you, interacting
and
with
it's
you.
not trying to be the hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
Constant hard sell.
Or selling you something you don't need.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think, and so from you having been on the buyer side of this, that contracting officers wish maybe industry understood a little more about the differences between their agency and others, especially when it comes to expectations, risk, and how they like to work with vendors?
Right. So I always tell people the contracting officers is like the CPA. They write the check. They are not technical 90% of the time.
Sure.
And you can't assume that, but you need to ask the question, right? So and then they often have a technical advisor or program manager. And a lot of times you don't want to cut them out because they're writing the check. You say, hey, can we have a group discussion so I understand what your requirements are? So that way they don't feel like if you say, I just want to talk to the program manager, they're like, well, I'm the person writing the check. Why would you not want me engaged at that point?
Yeah. I appreciate this because you are one of several that I have spoken to recently, and by several I mean vendors that are saying, get to know the requirements.
Yes.
Understand what the problem is. Ask what they need. Don't tell them what you think they need.
Right. So I love to share like some stories and examples. So I had a client that I was consulting. He wanted to do the Coast Guard. And he goes, oh, they just buy boats and I can get them pads for the boats. And I'm like, no, they do more than that. So when we went and spent some time researching, they have a whole health and wellness requirement before it was the thing. Because guess what? They're on the helicopters. They're on the boats. They have to be physically fit. And they had a contract for $2.5 million for an app, a physical therapist, nutrition, the whole 9 yards. And he was like, I hadn't really thought about that. Mm-hmm. So that's sometimes understanding that if your niche is just selling one thing and you don't have other things in your wheelhouse or teaming partners, you're always going to be searching for that one thing that's never come up.
Yeah. So this takes me back to your analogous of like one size does not fit all.
Exactly.
Sometimes even what you buy off the rack, you've got to tailor to me, right?
Yeah.
And so the government customer wants to know that you're paying attention to
You're paying attention because when you pay attention to the details, they're going to go, oh, hey, you bought me that shirt. It fits now. Hey, I want pants.
Yeah. Or I need a new wardrobe.
I need a new wardrobe. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And we can talk clothes all day.
I know. We were just talking about shoes. So yes.
Okay. So let's talk about though, some of the different realities for different parts of federal government. Because it's not all Department of War.
No.
Tell me a little bit about some of the realities or different requirements for maybe Department of Justice or SLED versus
so
federal.
SLED is a really good one, state and local, because a lot of times the state and local, and you're on the grant side, a lot of states will get the grant money and they turn it into a contract.
Okay.
And that's the state and local aspect that people don't realize.
Pull on that thread as we expand into that a little bit. When you're talking about grants, what are we talking about in the way of grants and why does it matter? So
most states will have grant money from the federal government and say, and again, I like to give examples. So our federal government do not know how to raise children in the foster care system. So they have nonprofits, and then the nonprofits will have training or they'll have clothes or they'll have shelter. Those are all contracts at some level. And so we are good at throwing money to it, but we're not good into making sure all the things are being done properly. So every state's a little different, especially like Texas, as big as they are, they have a lot of money compared to Wyoming in that aspect. Okay. So it's based on population and those kind of aspects of it. So SLED's really important, especially when you want to diversify. And also I like SLED if you want to get your feet wet and say, do I really want to get into this GovCon world? And is it really ideal for our small business? And especially even the micro smalls that build up to, I really like SLED. But it's knowing how to maneuver through that process and understand who's buying what.
But it might be their foot in the door.
It might be their foot in the door.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important, though, that people know what fits them. By people, I mean vendors. Right. Companies need to know what fits them, but sometimes they don't even know where to start. And you can start off wrong, can't you?
You sure can start off wrong.
So what's your advice there?
Reevaluate.
Okay.
Relook at your team. Relook at how you're doing it. And I am seeing a lot of this, and I call them micro small businesses. They're sole proprietors. They're trying to be the janitor. They're trying to be the CPA. There's certain things you have to say, I've got to outsource it, or I got to figure a different way to negotiate this aspect of it. And that's how I came about, is because I had people going, I can't be a business development person full time, or I can't be at every conference every time. So how do I find somebody who could be my company rep and come back with some good knowledge base so that we can move forward.
What I didn't know was true, which I have found fascinating in my time in GovCon, is that a lot of companies will 1099 some BD work.
Yes.
So they don't have to have a full-time.
You don't have to. And I don't want to be full-time for you. It's not that I don't love you. It's just your requirement may be only Air Force. And I've got another client that's dealing in Department of Justice. And that requirement is way different in conversation than is with the, with the Air Force.
So it affords the vendor, in this case,
the vendor,
the opportunity to get more experience themselves.
Right, because some of those who are in Air Force and they haven't diversified, like I've talked to several here at Alamo ACE, you got to diversify, especially in this economics. So how do you take your Air Force past performance and value it and get it to DOJ? Because there's some past experience, but it's knowing how to cross over in that level.
That customer may look at it and go, it's cute that you did that there, but that's not how we do it.
Right.
So show me how you would do it for me.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even think that there's that much depth in some of this.
Yeah, there is. There's definitely lots of depth.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the unique requirements that you've actually seen comparing some of these customers. Like, what are some of the things besides just you did that there, you did that here? What are some of the things that one customer, and you can identify them or not, might ask for that another wouldn't?
So one customer was a Navy. I just had this story the other day. They were at Kings Bay, and Kings Bay was redoing their base. Okay. So it was a construction firm. So then they were trying to do that contract. But Department of Energy has a contract requirement. But their contract requirement for construction is you have to have a $3 million bond. So it's knowing that detail. He could still bid on construction with DOE, but if he doesn't have that bond, it's thrown out.
You're an easy elimination.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important because everybody thinks it's strictly about your performance.
It's not always that.
Other things will be easy disqualifiers.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, just like you started, do your homework. And also having team members who are willing to bring intellectual information, not property, but intellectual information. Because nowadays, there's a lot of them in that former government, former military, they have great information, but they don't know how to utilize it. And this may be the focus that could be that support. That's great. That's good information. I've met a lot of folks that have worked in environments where they know some of the keys to the castle, but they don't know how to execute on this side of the wire on what knowing that means to them.
Right. Like I work on overseas contracts, and working OCONUS overseas, it's a different feel than here in the States. Bases, states, they have their own little nuances. Overseas is pretty cut and dry. They don't try to change it because you're dealing with NATO or that country's requirement. They're not going to change those things tomorrow in that aspect. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think a lot of companies need to say, okay, let's start with SLED and let's grow up to this part and let's grow up to, really have a real long-term strategic plan. When I come in and I tell people, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to give you a full perspective from government side, from business ownership side, and what the end user is asking for nowadays.
I think it's really good too that people have something that they're aiming at. More than once I have heard since I transitioned out of the military into the GovCon side, Hope, you can't do everything. You need to know what you want to do and head toward that.
And also, don't assume, wait for the government to ask you, Hope, I really like that shirt, but you know what? I need a pair of pants to match the shirt. And if you go, I don't really work on pants, then figure out, hey, do I need to find a subcontractor? Do I need to figure out a different focus? Let them come to you versus you forcing, here's the pants you need, here's the pants you need. And they're like, I didn't ask for pants. That's
the power of some of these events like AFCEA brings to these conferences is you get to work with and interact with other vendors that might make up a delta that your company isn't either able to do yet or interested in doing.
Right. And one thing I will say, because I've been an AFCEA member for 20 some odd years. So I was a member when it was required for government and contractors to be memberships. Oh. Because that's where we were at that point. But I tell young soldiers, especially now, you want some kind of association because there's going to be a point where you transition. There's going to be a point where you need somebody goes, oh, who did government? Who did contracting? Who was former, senior staff level? Because those are the people in this unique environment that you'll be able to have that conversation with. You're not going to be able to have it with your next door neighbor.
Yeah. All of us in GovCon have found that a lot of what we do, no matter what we're doing, is relationships. People will mentor you or they won't.
Right.
People will work with you or they won't.
Yeah.
And so what have you done to foster some of that before you need it, is what you're saying? Like joining some of these communities so that when you need it, you've created those platforms or relationships.
Yeah. So one of the girls in one of the other chapters, because I'm on the International Small Business Board for AFCEA, and one of the girls was transitioning. Her company got bought out, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I said, you need to kind of revamp your resume and talk to the other chapters. You just never know who may know somebody.
Yeah.
And she goes, I hadn't thought about that. I said, yeah, let's not get and that's the problem, is we get reactory and we're like, oh, I gotta go find a job. I said, that's like, relax for a minute. Like, breathe and think about what you want to do, and then talk to some people, and they can kind of guide you about what's a good company, what's not a good company, what kind of environment do you want for yourself, especially now, because we could work 24/7 if we really want to do. But that's not always a good balance. And also, then you have a success story. I met somebody else at another chapter in AFCEA. They helped me get to this point. We always want those kind of success stories.
And it doesn't just help individuals, though. It helps companies.
It helps companies.
Which those strong connections help your customer.
Right.
Because you can bring maybe partnerships through product and teaming partnerships through service. And you can put those things together and create a magnificent team for your customer.
Yeah, I call AFCEA like the Chamber of Commerce for GovCon.
Okay.
Because it covers so many different areas, and it's having that conversation, because what the environment of Alamo ACE is different than out in Colorado Springs, So every chapter has their little nuances in that aspect.
I think that's really cool. I understand the value of networking strictly from a military perspective, because some of the folks that I worked with as an E3 were with me in some high-level positions as an E9, and I was able to call on those relationships that I had crafted and held over the course of time. And I'm starting to learn that stuff is equally as important.
Oh, yes,
out here.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I think that's great. And so let's talk a little bit about the supporting of small business and some of those socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses.
Yeah.
So practical support. What does that look like? And what does government and prime contractors think about in that thread?
Well, I would say in the economics in past, it was very important. And you can't lead with, oh, I'm a woman-owned or I'm a service-disabled vet. I can say some of the states are getting way better, because our population of veterans is much higher than it used to be. When I was growing up, everybody knew a truck driver. That was like the joke. Now everybody knows a veteran. But the other thing is, just because you're a veteran doesn't mean you need to open a business and go into GovCon. Because it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed. And maybe you were the sergeant major and you did know the colonel, and now he's a general. There's no guarantee that he or she will buy what you want.
That's right.
I mean, I know the AFCEA president, when she was active duty as a one-star general, does not mean I can go up to and go, oh, now you need to buy something from me.
Well, and you would hope that wouldn't be true, because that sounds a little sideways.
Yeah, a little sideways. But the other thing is, small businesses need to decide what's their best value that they're bringing to the table, not the social economics. That's a bonus. I always say that's the bonus that you're bringing, because on the other side, it's, hey, they're the best value because of pricing, performance, whatever. And oh, by the way, I happen to be women-owned. Okay, that's an extra check off.
That should be the flag at the end, not the starting point.
Never the starting point.
And
my issue with some of these incubators and associations that are one-offs will say, oh, you need to get your certification. And you're like, but I'm still trying to build my business practice. And so you have to really think about what's the value for you at that point. Is it right now I need to get the certification, or do I need to get some performance and sub and then build to getting certifications, that kind of stuff.
Prioritizing.
Yeah.
That's good advice, because sometimes people feel like they need to have 8 legs in order to get.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're saying that's not true.
It's not true. No.
Okay. Well,
Not
that's
at all.
comforting, because some of the smalls and micro smalls out there might be like, I can't get in there. I can't get started. We don't need it all right up front.
You don't need it all up front. Sometimes, my first couple contracts, I was just a 1099 because I had worked in a war zone, knew the end user. That's all they wanted, somebody with experience.
Okay.
It gave me my feet wet. I got to see if I wanted to move on and build my business from that, or do I like just being a consultant? Because I think that's the other I see now is everybody says, oh, I got to open a business. You don't have to. You could be a 1099 for 20 years if that's what makes you happy, you know?
I like that you say that, because it isn't all dog eat dog.
No,
that does exist.
It does, yes.
But there's a lot to be said for companies that are like, hey, look, I just want someone to consult on that thing. You could be perfectly happy doing that.
Yeah. And
work for some, like you, pretty amazing vendors. And it doesn't have to mean one single vendor.
Right. Because I take my work as like working out. I love to work out. I've been working out since I was, competitive sports the whole 9 years, but I do not want to do the same routine every day.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I love a good analogy.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay, so then how can contracting officers and program offices better structure requirements or communication so that small and disadvantaged businesses have that fair shot and aren't being set up to fail? Is there something that we could offer them to maybe consider when they're writing requirements?
Yeah, so sometimes you just need to hear keywords from them.
Okay.
Task orders, big time. Like, give me a little test. Task orders are a little test. Can you fill 10 pants? I'm not asking for 100 pair of pants. Can you do 10 pants? Or, hey, we are good at this one widget. We know when you get this widget will be a great add-on. So it's giving them that visual versus you have to buy, keep pushing. And there's a point of being persistent and there's a point of being annoying. You got to find that balance with that because, they're that person on the front end. And also, I am all about communication. So when I was a contracting officer for the base, somebody would go, I keep calling you. I'm like, I'm never at my desk, so why are you calling me? Right? So also to find out on the other end, what's the best way to communicate with you? Text, email, phone call.
Yeah.
And it's a good phone call like first thing in the morning. And I will tell you, anybody, do not call a contracting officer on Monday morning. That is like the worst day ever. And don't call them Friday afternoon. And I always say, think about their schedule. They have to eat, they have to sleep. They're juggling multiple contracts. You're not their only baby.
Right. And anymore.
When
they are trying to execute so many contracts and fill so many requirements, like they're stretched pretty thin.
And I remember days where I don't know if I had lunch, kind of thing. So a lot of times it was when I had somebody go, how's your day going? And I'm like, it's going okay. Like just to have that breathing section of that aspect of it,
Sure.
But for contracting officers right now, they're young, they're very impressionable. A lot of them don't know the rules and you have to be patient with that. So sometimes directing them like, hey, I've been doing this and not to, say, hey, the other contracting officer, but our past experience. It's just sharing that just enough to not hit them hard, but to say, our past experience with the prior person in your seat, this is how we worked with them. To give them that example so that they don't feel like, oh God, yeah, Bob was awful and you need to do it this way because we're much better than that.
And it also comes across more as mentorship than that parent comparing their children.
Oh, yeah.
Why aren't you as good as your brother at that?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, that's really good because I'll tell you, there's a lot of conversation in this space about why don't they just answer their phone? And you're right. Everybody has times that they are just stacked with things. And so are we considering that when we're making those reach outs?
Right. And also just saying, how do I best communicate you? Is it texting you? Is it sending you an email? on Monday or like on Tuesday at 5:00. Those are the great conversations.
And looping it back to where we started.
Yeah.
One might say phone
Right.
and the next one might say email.
Right.
And so again, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So
No.
just because you were able to reach that one by telephone, this one may be like, don't call me.
Yeah.
That's my children.
Right.
Text me.
Yeah.
You text and they'll answer. You
Yeah,
call
because
and they are never going to answer.
Yeah, work-life balance is way different for government people now than when I was dealing with government. We were, shut down by 4:30 and,
Sure.
those kind of things. Where now, I have former, friends that are PMs, that kind of stuff in government. They're taking their phones on their soccer pitches with their kids or, those kind of things.
Because they're trying to be a family too,
Right.
or take care of their family too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a great point to be made because I think that there's a lot of conversation in industry that's like, you've gotta, and you've gotta. And somebody that's new to this might think, man, that is the hard and fast truth. That the answer I got from that vendor was, and that isn't always the truth.
It's not always the truth. My other issue that I find, and I see this now, so I joke that many years ago it was booth babes. The girls were smiling, they're in the booth, and they had no idea what the requirements were. Now they have young guys, which I appreciate. And just because you spent 2 years in the military does not mean you really know what's going on the warfighter aspect.
Sure.
But you don't want somebody so old that they haven't, it's been
No
so
relevancy.
long, no relevancy. So you got to find that balance in that conversation. And I see it in every conference. I've seen a little bit better in some companies where they have an older guy with a younger guy really helping them mentor and show the value of having the conversation with the end user, soldier, senior management, that kind of stuff.
This is deep in my own personal space because one of the things I hate the most about going to a restaurant is when you ask the waiter or waitress, what do you think about this dish? And they're like, I don't know, I don't eat here. And I'm like, if you don't eat what you're selling, why would I eat what you're selling? And so if you're a contracting officer or a service recipient and you're walking the exhibit hall floor, you're talking to these vendors at different booths, you're saying, make sure that person there can speak to what you do.
Yeah.
I like it.
In multiple levels. Because you're going to have some, like my cohort friend, she's from Department of State. She retired from there. Her requirements and her language is way different than everybody else's. And she's looking out for her best interests in how to plug the people in to the State Department. Because State Department is way different, But also just to have the conversation of, well, you got to get my Chotsky and I can talk to you now. Like force it on me. And I'm like, that's not a conversation with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think you can't assume who I know versus somebody else knows. As you know, as a female soldier, well, you must be hardened, you must be this way, this, and that's not necessarily true.
That's right. And just because I served in the military doesn't mean I understand every mission the military does.
Right.
I think sometimes people that were prior military might sell it that way.
They do.
And and the service recipient or contracting officer that they're speaking to might be like, I can already read that what you're telling me doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lose credibility.
Huge credibility.
Which does a lot to ruin that trust that you're trying to build.
It does. And they're like, well, you're just trying to sell me a bag of goods.
Yeah.
And then why am I spending all this money when they have a budget? And then you're like, but you have to buy it. We don't have to buy nothing.
That's right.
That's
right. It's good. So we are rolling up on time here.
Yes.
So what I want to do is before we wrap up, I'm just going to ask you, what is your unsolicited advice for businesses in government contracting who are trying better to understand and serve different types of government customers?
I think you need to focus on, I always say in the level of 3.
Okay.
Find 3. I always say pick one DOD because all 5 branches are convoluted, can be annoying, whatever. Find the one that you can focus on. Pick another one that's big corporate that is in GovCon that could be a good asset for you to help mentor you, that kind. Don't assume they will mentor you, but see if they could be a great asset. And then the other thing is diversifying so you don't just do federal, you do some state, you do some corporate contracts because those things do transfer over way easier than people realize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like even with your financial portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. Diversify.
That's good advice. Okay, Stacy, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course,
on
thank you very
Unsolicited.
much.
This has been really fun. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about Stacy, you can find her, Stacy Vaughn, out on LinkedIn. You can also check out the business that she does in government by looking up dunitygroup.com. Don't forget to subscribe, like, turn on your notifications, all that, so you don't miss any of these great conversations between government and industry. And we'll see you next time here on Unsolicited.